Okay, class, I want to talk to you briefly about factoring. As you can recall, that the distributed property states that AB, let's see, AB plus AC equals A times B plus C. Okay, so the distributed property allows us to factor out the greatest common factor of these terms in a polynomial and write them in a factored form of a polynomial. When we're dealing with polynomials, we must understand that a polynomial is in its factored form when it is written as a product of monomials, and polynomials cannot be factored any further. Okay, so what I mean here, if we have the polynomial 2 times 3x minus 4x, we would look at that at face value. We would think, hey, it is factored completely because there's nothing inside that can divide by the 2 that's on the outside, with the exception of 4, and we know that both terms. But if you look closely, you see that both the terms 3x and 4x have common factors of x. So we can, in reality, look at this term and go in and take x out of the first term, take x out of the second term, and multiply that times 2, and then we can come up with 2x times 3 minus 4, and now it is actually factored completely. So what we want to do is we're just going to take a few minutes and look over a couple of problems and work showing you how do we factor using the greatest common factor. For example, and I'm going to go ahead and change colors here so we can see it differently. For example, what if we were factoring 2x squared minus 4? Okay, this is a problem. We were asked to factor that. Now, the first thing we would want to do is look at the coefficients and determine, are there common factor between 2 and 4? Now, we've already spoke about that, and what we do is look at the factors of 2, which is 2 times 1, and the factors of 4, which is 4 times 1 and 2 times 2, and we would see that 2 would be common to factor out. So we would take 2, put it outside of a parentheses, and then we would divide, and 2 into 2 goes 1 times, and of course that'll be x squared, put our minus sign, and 2 goes into 4, actually 2 times. Then we look inside of our parentheses, and as we can see, there's nothing inside of our parentheses that's factorable. So we would come to the conclusion that this particular term is completely factored. Okay, so let's take a look at another problem, and this time we will take a look at a polynomial. Let's take a look at a polynomial and see how that works. So here we have the polynomial 8x cubed minus 4x squared minus 16x. Okay, this is a polynomial in the form of a trinomial, and what we want to do here is look at our coefficient. Remember, coefficient terms are the integers that's in front of our variables. So we have 8, 4, and 16, and our job is to determine what are the common factors of these. Are there common factors for all three? So we look at 8, and then we have 1 and 8, 2 and 4, and then we have 4, which is 1 and 4, and 2 and 2, and we have 16, and it's 1 and 16, 2 and 8, and 4 and 4. Now notice that each one contains a 4, so we can come in here and take 4 out. Okay, well, let's look at the variables and make sure they have in common. Well, they do, because we have x cubed, x squared, and x, so they all contain the variable x. And what we want to do here is make sure we pull with the variables, since they are common, you pull the smallest of the three. And of course, x will be the smallest, x come out. Now you divide. 4 into 8, 2 times x divides into x cubed. This will be 3 minus 1, which will give us x squared. Put our minus sign. 4 into 4, 1 time, and x into x squared, 2 minus 1 will go x times. Remember, we do not have to put the 1 value there. And then 4 into 16 goes 4 times, and x into x goes x to the 1 minus 1, which is 0, and we know that x of 0 is 1, and 4 times 1 gives us 4. Okay, so it looks, we would think off of face value that the actual polynomial is solved, but what we want to do is we would want to look at these particular factors, and we have a trinomial on the inside, and my friends, we don't want to leave this trinomial, so we want to look at what in the world can we do with this particular trinomial to factor it. Okay, so let's think about this. Okay, let's go ahead and put our 4x back, and we'll have inside 2x squared minus x minus 4, close our parentheses, and think about it. Now remember, when we factor, we said we're going to factor binomials into binomials, so we will put our 2 parentheses, and we'll look at what's going on our last term. So we have minus 4. So we talked about that when we multiply, we're going to get our last term. So think about this. We multiply to get a negative. How can we do that? Well, of course, we use a positive and a negative. Okay, so now we have our signs in place, but let's look at our first two. We look at 2. What are the factors of 2? Well, only 2 and 1. So 1 will take 2 and 1 will take x. Okay, so that's our factors to be able to get 2. But we must be able to determine now, what do we do for if we multiply the inside and the outside to get 4? So we'll do a little side stuff here where we look at what's our first. That's going to be we say 2 and 1. Okay, 2 and 1. Then we'll take a look at what's called our outer, and that will be I'm sorry, that's our first term. And then we'll look at what can we do to get our outer as far as 4 is concerned, and the factors of 4 actually. So the factors of 4 are 2 and 2 and 1 and 4. So let's think about this. 1 and 4. Okay, well, let's go ahead and try it. Sorry about the restart. So let's go ahead and try it. So we have 1 and 4, and we want to look at what's our outer plus our inner. Okay, so we have 2 and 1, so we would go 2 times 4 and 1 times 1. So we have 2 times 4 is 8, and 8 plus 1 is too much, and that's going to give us 9. So let's rearrange this first one again, and let's go with 1 and 2, and then for 4 let's go with 2 and 2. Okay, so now we also have to keep under consideration that one of these is positive and one is negative. So let's go with 1 times 2, which will give us 2, and then 2 times 2, which will give us plus 4. So let's think about making the 4 negative. Okay, so that still is going to give us a negative 2. And here we're looking for a negative 1. So let's try making this 1 and 2 and 2 and 2, and of course we'll still come up with the same thing. So as we look at this, and we're still coming up with 2, and here we could say a plus 2, and then a negative 4 again, and that's still going to give us a negative 2. So as we look at this, we can determine that it is not factorable. Okay, so at least we made our attempt to do it, but if we go back, we can see that we have only actually no factorable terms on the inside of our original factored amount. And since we could not factor the trinomial, we can say that the trinomial on the inside is not factorable. Okay, so let's take a look at checking it to make sure we made the right decision, and then we can move on. So let's go ahead and go back to red to check it. And in order to check it, we will go and look at distributive property. So we will check, and as we check, we have 4x times 2x squared minus x minus 4. So now we just want to distribute 4x to each term. So distributing 4x to 2x squared, 4 times 2 is 8, and x times x squared is x cubed. And of course, 4 times a negative 1 is going to give us minus 4, and x times x is going to be x squared. And then lastly, we'll take 4 times 4, a negative 4 actually, is going to give us 16 and x. So as we go back and check, that we do see that our check answer goes back to our original equation, and of course that means that it is a factor polynomial. Okay, thanks for your time. We'll see you later.